Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of PEP Talks Uncut. I'm your host, David Moore, and this is going to be a weekly 1 hour program. In the past, we used to do these as 30-minute interviews that are unscripted and unedited. We simply broadcast what's discussed during our conversation. And today we have with us Dylan Altemara, who is the president of Pennsylvania Equality Project. Greetings, Dylan.
Hi, David. How's it going?
Quite good, thank you. Um, let's get right into today's topics. I know you have a big announcement you want to share. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak with you today. And my announcement is that as of yesterday, I announced my candidacy for the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in the 39th District. So that encompasses the southern tip of Allegheny County as well as a portion of Washington County. So, this is currently a seat held by two-term Republican. It's not an easy seat to flip by no means, but I think it's the type of seat that deserves full-time representation. And I look forward to, working here over the next many months to hopefully flip this district and deliver the type of representation folks in the Mon Valley need.
So down in the Mon Valley, your current representative probably has corporate sponsors, maybe other financial donors
Mhm.
that are contributing to the maximum allowed under campaign finance laws. What kind of campaign was it that you're interested in? Are you going the campaign donor route, the corporate donor route, or are you going a different route?
Yeah, so Rep. Kuzma, who's been in office now for about 4 years, primarily receives most of his financial backing from the oil and gas lobby. It's my understanding, as well as the fact that, because in addition to working, part-time as a state rep, collecting $106,000 in taxpayer money, he also has a very lucrative legal career where he has his own private law firm. He's used his position as a state rep to become a solicitor. And he's also recently signed on to do fancy corporate legal work at a high-powered corporate law firm down in Pittsburgh. So, between just having money and lining up with the oil and gas industry, that's primarily how his campaign's been funded. As far as my campaign, I will certainly be a people-funded um, campaign that will really rely on small dollar donations, and of course, I will be open to receiving PAC money from labor. I think sort of reorienting the Democratic Party to be a party that primarily focuses on working people requires from the bat turning down corporate money, because unfortunately I think it's negatively influenced our party to such a degree that in a lot of districts it's almost indistinguishable to see the difference between the Democrat running and the Republican running. So that's a clear point of differentiation between myself and Mr. Kuzma.
You mentioned labor money. You're talking about unions, such as maybe the teachers union or Teamsters or other types of blue collar or even white collar workers, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So PSEA, AFT, Teamsters, the building trades, unions that I think really have ties in the community and represent the types of jobs that working people in this district perform on a daily basis.
And you come from a family that is not, let's say, upper class income. You're not from a family of wealth, so it's not like you have family funds to dump into a campaign.
Right, that's correct. I mean, I have, my family, like a lot of families in the Mon Valley, we all have connections. Some are a little bit more well off than others, but me, myself, I am not personally wealthy. And so I will not have the ability to, cut myself a check for $25,000 like Mr. Kuzma has previously.
Okay, so that certainly sets you at a disadvantage, but the advantage you have is you can use that when you're speaking with voters and let them know, hey, I'm in the same position you are. I understand where you're at financially, and I understand where you're at in terms of making sure you can keep food on the table and keep your lights turned on and make sure you make your rent payments on time. And I think that kind of connection is important for voters. They want someone that represents them, not corporate interests.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, I think, unfortunately, what we see currently, not just in Harrisburg, but obviously as well in DC, is, the barrier to entry that regular working people have to get into politics is really evident in terms of the policies that are prioritized. And so by pricing regular folks out of the equation, regardless of your political persuasion, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, I think a lot of the issues that we might agree on aren't otherwise prioritized simply because we're not part of the club that's currently in political power. So again, I appreciate you highlighting that because that's definitely a contrast that I look to highlight over the course of this campaign.
Okay, so given your particular representative district,
Mhm.
what do you think are among the most important issues facing the voters that you want to attract to your campaign?
Certainly. So I think, first and foremost, it's just the providing people the opportunity to have full-time representation. As I said previously, compared to other Republicans that have represented this district, I think, Andrew's a much more, on a personal level, nice guy. This isn't a personal attack. This is just about business. And so, when you raise your hand to represent a district with 60 plus thousand folks in it, it's really important to me that you are full-time engaged. And, given his workload through, his private law firm, his work that he does as a municipal solicitor, his corporate legal work now, obviously that's pulling him in a number of directions. And I think it unfortunately removes him from being as visible and as present in the various parts of this district over the two counties that the district comprises. So first and foremost, I offer full-time representation for full-time pay, not part-time representation for full-time pay. But in addition to that, as a result of the big beautiful bill over the next several years, we're going to see significant cuts to vital programs such as Medicaid, SNAP, veterans benefits. And within the context of this district, it's very paramount that we have full-time representatives fighting for funding in Harrisburg, just because we have, within a span of about 15 miles, three different hospitals, Mon Valley, McKeesport, and Jefferson, that all really rely on Medicaid and other financial support from the government to remain in business. So if that funding goes away, it's possibly not just thousands of people losing access to healthcare, but hundreds of jobs, specifically union jobs that go away. So that's issue number one. Issue number two, I think, is, fighting for are fighting to take on political corruption. As we touched on previously, I think the influence of big money in politics has really corrupted the process, and it's really taken regular people out of the conversation. So, I'll be talking at great length in the weeks and months to come about the need for campaign finance and ethics reform, because it's
Mhm.
not just the amount of money that's dumped into these campaigns, but it's also sort of the revolving door. You put your 5, your 10 years in, you cash out, you collect a taxpayer pension, and then you're going right back into it as a lobbyist, or you get put on a board or a commission to make even more money from the taxpayers. And I think that's a sort of, blatant corruption that rubs all voters the wrong way, again, regardless of political persuasion. And then beyond that, I think the other area that
Sorry about that. You were saying.
yeah, so as I was saying, I think political corruption is a real problem that is prevalent in both parties. Again, a lot of folks, put their time in Harrisburg. They are completely funded by the donors. They go there and they completely represent the interests of the donors. And then after 5 years or 10 years in office, and after they've been good little boys and good little girls, they retire, draw a pension, and then move into, lobbying activities where they just continue to fuel a machine that isn't geared towards, helping regular people with the issues that they are facing on a daily basis. And then I would say another issue that I really want to prioritize is the need to provide targeted school property tax relief for working folks and seniors on fixed incomes. Clearly, property taxes, the whole funding mechanism for education in Pennsylvania is broken. We need to be doing more at a state level to make sure not only that we have equitable funding, but quality education throughout the Commonwealth, regardless of zip code. But in the process, we also have to make sure that, school taxes don't get to the point where we have people who've worked 30, 40, 50 years and now they can't afford to stay in their homes. And so I think one of the areas that we can address that issue, instead of lowering the corporate tax rate as they did a few years ago, where it's going to go from 9.99% all the way down to 4.99% by 2031, we should instead be talking about freezing it where it's at, closing loopholes, and using that additional tax collection to, again, provide that targeted relief to those populations that would really benefit by the state doing more to, reduce taxes locally.
Are there other tax solutions that you think would be effective, such as maybe putting an excise tax on some of the natural gas wells that are in your area, or maybe on some of the other natural resources uh, access that has caused a little bit of environmental damage down your way?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, if we have to be honest with the fact that, the natural gas industry is a leading industry in Pennsylvania. And it looks like through permitting and zoning reform, that's probably going to be part of this budget. And certainly through the language of House Bill 205, that, we are going to see a significant build out of the natural gas industry over the next decade. Primarily to fuel these data centers. So, I think to your point, if we're going to go ahead and basically give a blessing for natural gas to get their piece of it, for AI to get their piece of it. Certainly, the least they can do is be good neighbors and contribute more to the state's coffers to be able to, again, have that money targeted in a way to provide tax relief and also to fund other programs and initiatives that are vitally important. Because right now, unfortunately, it's kind of a situation where, the costs have been socialized, but the gains have been privatized. And so I think we do need to have a conversation about how to, work in some of the public's needs in these arrangements so they're getting a piece of the pie on the back end.
Pie. You just raised an interesting point. Food costs in your area. We've seen locally here in Meadville that they are increasing at a fairly staggering rate. What are some of the things the Pennsylvania legislature can do, whether that's through providing additional funding for SNAP benefits or in some way providing additional assistance to resource centers that offer food substances to your local constituents, such as food banks.
Mhm.
What are some steps that Harrisburg can take to be able to benefit people's kitchen tables?
I mean, I think all of the above. Certainly, we need to put more money behind the SNAP program, which is obviously going to be challenging given the federal reductions to SNAP that we're going to see over the next several years. So certainly, first and foremost, I think that's an issue that needs to be prioritized. In addition, I think direct support to the existing food pantry or food bank network is vital. Just because, like in my area, the Pittsburgh Food Bank does God's work in making sure people don't go hungry. Unfortunately, they oftentimes do this on a shoestring budget. So I think the state can be better partners in ensuring all of their programs are fully funded. And then lastly, this is a situation where, once again, we need to talk about the minimum wage because we've not seen an increase in the minimum wage since 2009. It currently sits at $7.25 an hour, which is, yes, lower than in West Virginia and every other neighboring state that touches the Commonwealth. And while, a lot of employers might not be paying $7.25 necessarily, let's not forget the lower you keep the starting point for wages, the more downward pressure that creates for all other wages across the board. And so it creates a situation where people don't have the purchasing power that they otherwise would need in order just to take care of, basic daily costs of living expenses. And certainly food plays a tremendous role in budgeting for most people.
Okay. Well, that is going to bring us to our first commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the work that you do in the nonprofit sector. We'll be right back after these messages.